Joe Biden's been a phenomenal president. He's lived up to so many of the promises he's made. There's one promise left that he could fulfill, being a transitional figure. He could resign the presidency in the next 30 days, make Kamala Harris the president of the United States.
The basic premise of the argument is that President Biden should resign to allow Kamala Harris to be president for a few months. And that way, he will have executed the transition, which, he claimed when he ran in 2020 that he would be a transitional president. And the implication was that he would pass the baton to Kamala, which he didn't do until he was forced to in July. And so that's put them in a difficult situation, of course. But but the argument is based, as usual, with the Democrat Party on identity politics. They're kind of obsessed, not just with him being a transitional president, but more so that having a woman president for the first time. So it's kind of the backdoor effort to have the first female president. I don't think this will happen, but it just, the fact that it's getting airtime, it just shows you how, in many ways, how desperate they are, and really it points to their lack of self-reflection, or the fact that they haven't figured out yet anyway why they lost, and lost so dramatically too. And it's the fact that they've just proven their point, or their own case, that they were so obsessed with identity politics. She was the DEI candidate. I mean, she basically won the DEI sweepstakes, and that's not speculation. Joe Biden said it. He basically announced in the summer of 20 that he was going to pick a woman of color, and it kind of locked him into a bad decision, the first bad decision he made, which was selecting Vice President Harris. She ran in 2020. First she called Joe Biden a racist in the first primary debate, but more importantly, she came in. She was polling number 7 in South Carolina before she dropped out. And South Carolina is a state that's very, very hospitable to African American candidates, because the Democrat base there is predominantly African American. So it's amazing that she was running in 7th place. She never polled over 2% and dropped out, as you know, before Iowa. So before the first vote was cast, she dropped out. So I think it would be even more ridiculous that if they did this, that she, the complaints, many of the complaints about Kamala as a candidate was that she'd never run in a nomination. She dropped out before the first caucus in 2020. And then, of course, she never had to run in the 2024 election. They just basically anointed her the candidate. So to then have Joe step aside and make her president, it would just be another chapter in an unelected candidate becoming president. And she almost became president, last week, without running in the nomination process. So for the party that's always complaining about Trump being the threat to democracy, it's kind of funny in the sense that they elevated her without, and it ended up proving that it showed that she had never really gone through the process. She'd never been questioned. She'd never been challenged by the media. So that really showed when she was anointed as candidate, when she started doing press and she started campaigning. So, I think it would just be the icing on the cake to not only have had a candidate that had never run and earned a vote, but also have a president that would just, be just it would really just be an odd end to a really odd process that they've experienced. And I should add, she wasn't, not only, didn't she go through the process of earning votes in the primaries, but she was elevated at the last minute. Now a lot of Democrats are arguing now that that's contributed to her loss, the fact that the country didn't have enough time to get to know her. But come on, that she was vice president for 3.5 years. She ran for president in 2020. I think the electorate was well aware of her challenges, and that's one of the reasons she lost so badly. Look, if their argument 6 months ago in July, when he stepped aside as candidate, if their argument then was, he's not capable, he doesn't have the cognitive ability to run for president, well, they should have also removed him from office. And it's just classic Democrat identity politics, that the reason that they want to remove him now is not because of his cognitive issues or the risk and danger it is to the country to have a president who's basically absentee at this point. It's they want to replace him so they can check the box that there was a woman president. I would hope for their sake that the first woman president, if it's a Democrat, actually earns it and isn't gifted it. But it really points to just a shocking the cover up of Biden's cognitive issues, all year, or you could even argue for the last 4 years and during the 2020 campaign. It's really shameless that this cover up was executed, and they're all guilty. Kamala, Nancy Pelosi, the whole lot, really covered this up. And even when prior to the June 27th debate, the famous debate where, with Trump, where he basically, fell on his face. Prior to that, 65% of Americans were agreeing with the question, according to the pollsters, of, whether he had cognitive issues. So it's not like the cover up was working, but they kept with it. And it was really just a shame that that they tried, at least, even though they weren't successful, especially after June 27th, that they covered it up. And the only reason that they pulled him was not because of his challenges and the obvious cognitive issues. It's because he was polling down 5 points to President Trump, and he was going to lose the election. So, this just demonstrates the sheer, greed for power that they have, and only would pull him and still left him in the White House, and which has really, left the country and the world in a dangerous position when someone who the party believed was incapable of running for office. And as you saw in the Robert Hur case back in the winter, that he wasn't fit enough to face a trial, and that no judge would probably allow him to face that indictment, because he didn't have the cognitive skills to handle it. And that should be really troubling. So, if they want to pull him because the world needs a president who's got the ability and the cognitive skills, well, then go ahead. But if that were the case, they would have done it a long time ago. I don't think anybody's taking it seriously. If anything, it just gives us more room to criticize, the fact that they covered this up for so long. But again, it doesn't sound like they want him to move aside because the country needs a president with full cognitive abilities. That they just want to check the box on another identity politics, joyride. And it just kind of shows again that that's all they have.